GOP diversity. Two pro-life Republicans, an African American and a woman, announced they're running for president. Hopeful sign. With a citywide curfew now lifted, students at a Baltimore Catholic high school express hope. Dire warning. The Archbishop of Aleppo, Syria, sounds an alarm for Christians in the Middle East. And he's Twitterific. A new study shows Pope Francis reaches millions through social media. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Monday, May 4th, 2015. Good evening from Washington. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. Two more pro-life Republicans, both political newcomers, jump into the 2016 race for the White House. Former Hewlett-Packard CEO Carly Fiorina announced her candidacy this morning. She says she believes Americans are ready for an outsider after years of political gridlock in Washington. She immediately took aim at Hillary Rodham Clinton, the frontrunner for the Democratic nomination. And retired surgeon Ben Carson made it official in his hometown of Detroit. The former head of pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins has never run for public office, but he's a star among some conservatives, today earning wild applause.
Now I've introduced my family. You say, well, who are you? I'll tell you. I'm Ben Carson, and I'm a candidate for President of the United States.
So far, Carson is the only African-American presidential candidate from either party. Sarah Westwood covers politics for the Washington Examiner. And Sarah, it's no secret the Republican Party is not known for its diversity. What do these two bring to the table?
Both of these are very exciting candidates for the GOP. Obviously, Carly Fiorina has tried to paint herself as the anti-Hillary, as the only woman in the GOP race. And Ben Carson has showed that he can take the GOP's message to non-traditional voters. You saw him announce his presidency in Detroit, and he's showing that he can really reach some of these diverse groups that traditional candidates can't reach.
They don't have the political experience. Can they compete with these young guns, the senators? You've got Cruz and Rand Paul and Marco Rubio.
It'll certainly be difficult. One hurdle they'll have to overcome is low name recognition, whereas some of these other GOP candidates are household names. They'll have to see how they can compete for fundraising when there are so many GOP candidates vying for that. And also, polls are showing that national security is the #1 issue that GOP primary voters care about, and neither of them bring very much to the table in terms of national security.
Well, Fiorina did point to the fact that there's this Washington gridlock, and a lot of people feel that. Does their outsiderness, because they're not inside the political machines, could that be turned into a plus for them?
Absolutely. Some people definitely see these political class that's so entrenched that are winning these elections over and over again. You see people already having Clinton fatigue set in with Hillary Clinton on the other side. People are resisting Jeb Bush for the same reason. So that is something that could be used as an asset for them.
I noticed that Fiorina, as well as Rubio, went directly after Hillary Clinton, not other potential Republican nominees. At some point, aren't they going to have to focus on each other?
Certainly, and we'll see that play out in the debates. Luckily, the GOP has limited the number of debates, seeing what happened in the 2012 cycle when the candidates beat each other up and left Mitt Romney damaged. As long as they're keeping the pressure on Hillary Clinton, they're not fighting each other, that could be seen as a good thing for the Republican Party.
So the field is expanding. It will probably continue to expand. Who do you see as jumping in next?
We expect to see Mike Huckabee jump in next, and he could certainly shake the race up. We already know he can be competitive in Iowa because he won there in 2008, and the evangelical vote is strong there. He's popular among evangelicals, but it could serve the purpose of pushing all of the candidates too far to the right, and that could make things unsteady when the general election comes along.
You talked about Hillary fatigue. She has nobody out there that's running against her immediately as far as Democrats. There's going to be a lot of excitement around this Republican field, is there not?
Absolutely. There is definitely a clear path for the GOP. Some of Obama's policies are wildly unpopular. There's a hunger for that. You just saw the GOP sweep the midterm elections. So there's definitely support all over the country. And so as long as the GOP candidates don't do irreparable damage to each other during the primary and focus all that vitriol on the other side of the aisle, they really might have a shot at the White House.
All right, we'll have you back again soon. Sarah Westwood with the Washington Examiner, thanks for joining us. Some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. The FBI searches a Phoenix apartment for clues after a shooting outside a Prophet Muhammad cartoon contest in Texas. Police officers killed 2 gunmen Sunday who had shot and wounded a security officer at this suburban Dallas venue. They were gunned down before they were able to get inside the building, so no one else was hurt in this incident. One of the gunmen from Arizona had the same name as a man convicted of lying to the FBI in a terrorism investigation. No explosives were found in a search of their vehicle. The European Union approves $22 million for earthquake aid in Nepal. Nepal's government says the nation will need immense international support during the coming weeks. Now, 8 days after the quake, many remote villages have yet to receive aid. The U.S. military is on the ground. 4 U.S. Marine helicopters arrive in Kathmandu Sunday. Their goal is to make an immediate difference in rural areas.
So we've got search and rescue teams waiting to go out to the most remote areas. We've got relief supplies, especially shelter. I think most people don't understand that shelter is the most pressing need.
The 7.8 magnitude quake has killed now at least 7,000 people. Nepal is one of the world's poorest nations. Its economy, based on tourism, has been crippled by this earthquake. The Maryland National Guard draws down about 3,000 troops deployed to Baltimore following last week's rioting and looting there. Violence broke out after the funeral of a black man who was injured in police custody and later died. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan called for a day of prayer and peace Sunday as the city's mayor lifted the curfew. Susie Pinto reports.
Freddie Gray was not merely a symbol, but a real person.
Freddie Gray, remembered Sunday by Baltimore Archbishop William E. Laurie.
We know that his arrest and the manner of his death have struck a very deep chord in the city of Baltimore.
Since Gray's death, the city has seen days of protest and sometimes violent clashes with police. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan attended Mass at Baltimore's St. Peter Claver. Outside, he told reporters he's witnessed incredible acts of kindness since the worst of the riots.
It's a great way to end the week with a day of prayer and peace and reconciliation.
We want to heal our city.
The governor's day of prayer and peace comes the same day the mayor lifted the city's curfew.
What you saw in these last few days with the peaceful demonstrations and people coming together to celebrate Baltimore is that we will get better, that we will get through this, and we'll do it as one Baltimore.
Hands up, don't shoot! I can't breathe! Hands up, don't shoot!
Sunday afternoon, many of those demonstrators were outside City Hall. Reverend Jamal Bryant called for every church in Baltimore to gather in peaceful protest as part of the One Baltimore movement. The movement says its aim is to continue the dialogue on police reform, jobs, and education. Susie Pinto, EWTN News Nightly.
Thanks, Susie. John Malcolm of the Heritage Foundation is a legal expert who focuses on criminal law. So, John, the Department of Justice is going to spend $20 million for body cams that officers will wear.
Right.
Is this a real solution or a knee-jerk reaction?
Well, I certainly don't think that it's a knee-jerk reaction, Brian, but I'm not sure it's a solution either. I mean, the point of having cameras is to help convict the guilty, exonerate the innocent, to help confirm instances of police brutality, and to refute false accusations of police brutality. But, you know, as with any picture, there's going to be interpretation about what one is seeing on the video, and there may be things that take place outside of the camera's range that'll be germane to explain what's going on the camera. But it's certainly a step in the right direction, to my mind, to bring greater transparency to the process, but it's not a panacea.
Just the fact that they would be wearing a camera, you would think, would keep people doing more what they're supposed to be doing versus maybe getting off track.
Yeah, well, one would hope so. I mean, look, I think the overwhelming majority of police officers in this country do an outstanding job and stay within the bounds of the law and don't engage in police brutality or excessive force. But certainly knowing that there are people watching and indeed having a camera that's recording it may have a salutary effect about, you know, reining in any instincts that one might have to go over the line.
Certainly, I agree with you that there are many, many police officers who are doing the work that they're hired to do and that are protecting the people. But is police brutality something that's relatively common? I mean, is it happening and we're not aware of it?
Well, it could be, and that's one of the reasons why, cameras are a good maneuver. Certainly what happened with that shooting down in South Carolina, where somebody, caught on a cell phone camera a clear act of brutality was a positive thing. But look, next week here in this town is Police Week, where officers from all over the country are going to be coming here to celebrate the lives and mourn the deaths of their colleagues who lost their lives in the line, in the line of duty. It's a very, very dangerous job that law enforcement officers engage in, and most of them behave in a very, very professional manner.
Thanks for reminding us about Police Week.
Sure.
I enjoyed that. So there is, though, a mistrust in law enforcement based on these situations. How can that be restored?
Well, I think that there needs to be an ongoing, calm, and honest dialogue in which people listen to each other, and they don't just listen to publicity hounds and hucksters and fear-mongerers. And people, as part of that dialogue, have to be willing to not only question the other guy's conduct, but their own conduct as well. And it's very, very important, if we're going to have faith in our criminal justice system and indeed, get information about bad guys that are living in communities throughout our country, that trust be restored.
All right, John Malcolm with the Heritage Foundation, thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well, with life returning to normal now, some Baltimore Catholic high school students find hope in the ashes of destruction. Jason Calvi reports tonight.
In East Baltimore, urban blight on one side, jail on the other.
And standing right in between is the hope of Christ in the form of our school.
Since its founding in 1828, students at St. Francis Academy have seen slavery, the civil rights movement, and now the riots last Monday.
The kids tried to get a point over, but they did not have a good way to do it. They just didn't know how to get their anger out.
Anger over the death of Freddie Gray. Police officers are now facing charges in his arrest and death.
This is the oldest school in the country for predominantly African Americans, and you can see the photos on the walls from the 1940s. Here's one from 1968. That was the last year the National Guard was brought into Baltimore after rioting after the death of Martin Luther King Jr.
Freshman Serenity Faith Chambers says she's heard her friends called the N-word, but it's her name that has new meaning today.
We create peace around this world, like my name means. We create peace around here. We just come together and we stop all this.
Her brother Matthew has high hopes for the city of Baltimore.
I think it can be a very good place to live if we as young people change the aspect of it.
And Lorenzo Simpson knows he can lead by example.
I could personally make a difference by just being a good role model to younger people, so when they grow up, if another time come around like this, they will know how to react to it.
It's a legacy of hope, not anger, nearly 200 years later.
We're standing in a breach, we're standing in the gap, and every kid that comes in here exits a lot closer to Christ, and that's good for everybody.
In Baltimore, Jason Calvi, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Jason. It's good to see some hope. Pope Francis praises the zeal of an 18th century Franciscan missionary that he'll canonize in the fall when he visits the United States. Francis honored Junipero Serra this weekend during a homily at the North American College. That's a seminary in Rome that trains future American priests. The Holy Father describes Serra as part of a missionary corps, going out to the peripheries to spread the gospel. He highlights 3 characteristics of soon-to-be Saint Serra.
Suo slancio missionario, la sua devozione mariana e la sua testimonianza di santità.
Francis pointing out Serra's missionary zeal, his Marian devotion, and holiness. Serra will be canonized in an outdoor mass September 23rd here in Washington at Catholic University of America. Alan Holdren joining us from Rome now. And Alan, the Holy Father seems to set the record straight about Blessed Serra, who is somewhat controversial, isn't he?
That really is what it sounded like, Brian. He spoke about Junipero Serra as a founding father of the United States. Those are no small words. He said that he is making him a saint because of this apostolic zeal that he showed, going out to Native Americans in what is present-day California and really preaching the gospel to them. He was described earlier in the day by the Archbishop of Los Angeles as one of the great pioneers of human rights, someone who was a working class missionary, someone who really put the needs of those he was preaching to ahead of his own.
And Alan, Pope Francis seemed to be setting the record straight on him. He is going to visit the NAC, his visit to the NAC is a preview of his U.S. trip. Any idea what themes he might bring here with him?
Yeah, that's really what it felt like, Brian. He was there among Americans there at the North American College, looking ahead to what could be the themes come September. It will be the Synod on the Family, because he's actually going to be taking part in what's called the World Meeting of Families there in Philadelphia on his trip to the U.S. Right ahead of that Synod where the Church is really speaking about how to reach out to families and really address the challenges that affect them and the issues that they face today. And then we can also imagine that the Pope will be speaking a lot about mercy. We've got the Jubilee for Mercy that will start in December. That's just 3 months from when the Pope will be in the United States.
All right, Alan Holdren in Rome. Thank you, Alan. Coming up, a Syrian archbishop warns that Christians could disappear from the Middle East. And thousands making the dangerous Mediterranean crossing are now safe in Italy after weekend rescues. On this fourth day of May, the church honors St. John Houghton, one of the priests known as the Martyrs of England. He was killed for refusing to sign King Henry VIII's Act of Supremacy, which made the king head of the Church of England. Thanks for joining us on this Monday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. The Supreme Court has turned away a challenge to New Jersey's ban on so-called gay conversion therapy for minors. Governor Chris Christie signed that ban into law in 2013. Therapy supporters presented their case as a restriction on free speech of counselors and doctors. The U.S. sends $45 million to Kenya to help with its refugee crisis. Secretary of State John Kerry announced the funding today in Kenya for the UN's refugee agency. Kenya is struggling to provide for some 600,000 refugees, mostly from Somalia. Kerry also criticized South Sudan's warring president. He pledged $5 million to create a mechanism to hold accountable those responsible for that nation's violence. With Syria's civil war now in its fifth year, a Syrian archbishop warns Christianity may soon disappear from that region. Catherine Zeltner has that story.
There's peace as this Greek Melkite archbishop prays in Washington, D.C. But his home in Aleppo, Syria, is filled with stories of conflict.
They are destroying our country.
Syria's civil war has killed more than 200,000 people and created more than 4 million refugees. And now, ISIS terrorists control about 1/3 of Syria and Iraq. Archbishop Jean-Clement Jean-Bart just wrapped up a trip to the U.S. to expose what life is like for Syrian Christians.
Their life is really miserable. They have lost everything. They have no work. They have no income.
With Holy Land replicas here at the Franciscan Monastery in Washington, D.C., Christians can feel a sense of closeness to those persecuted over 5,000 miles away in Syria. Many American Christians want to have a better understanding of the torment.
The Christian population has diminished. It's shrunk. People have obviously run into violent confrontations, and if they haven't, they've left the area if they could. Many can't leave, and that's why I'm here tonight to listen to the Archbishop to get an update on exactly what those conditions are.
Aid to the Church in Need sponsored the Archbishop's trip. It was a chance to share stories of Syrian Christian bravery and faith, like this one, involving a packed Easter Mass.
There were over 3,000 people out in the streets, and this is at a time when the night before they had bombed churches.
Archbishop Jean-Bart calls Syria a holy land, blessed by the blood of martyrs. But today, he says it's hell.
If it continues, I am afraid Syria will be emptied of its Christian, but also it collapsed.
A warning that is bringing many to prayer. Catherine Zeltner, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Catherine. And thousands of migrants, including a baby born on a Navy ship, are safe in Italy tonight. They were rescued on the Mediterranean Sea this weekend. Today, hundreds were brought to the Sicilian port. Crowded shelters are struggling to find room for the 6,800 men, women, and children. The Navy, Coast Guard, Border Police, and Doctors Without Borders joined forces for the three-day rescue effort. The number of migrants crossing this year is on track to surpass the 170,000 rescued last year. Well, it's 1 down, 2 to go as Kentucky Derby winner American Pharoah makes a run at the Triple Crown. It's a feat that's only been accomplished, or hasn't been accomplished, since 1978. Pharoah and jockey Victor Espinoza took the title at Saturday's 141st running of the Kentucky Derby. They'll try to repeat at the Preakness later this month and the Belmont Stakes in June. Up next, millions follow Pope Francis on social media. And London celebrates the birth of Her Royal Highness, Prince Charlotte of Cambridge. The love of Christ fills our hearts and makes us always able to forgive. A tweet from Pope Francis this weekend. Thanks for joining us on this Monday evening. I'm Brian Patrick, and when the Pope tweets, the world listens. A new study ranks the Holy Father as the most influential world leader on Twitter. Wyatt Goolsby joins us with more on the study.
Brian, this isn't the first time Pope Francis has been named the most influential world leader on Twitter. He also got the nod the last 2 years as well. Not only does he have millions of followers, but thousands of them retweet his messages. The Holy Father is known worldwide for his humility and concern for the poor, but his messages on Twitter are also being shared around the world. A new study by the PR firm Burson Marsteller shows President Obama is still by far the most followed world leader on Twitter, but the Pope has far more retweets. That's a sign he has more engagement among his followers. One recent example that got nearly 15,000 retweets in English: "The cross of Christ is not a defeat, the cross is love and mercy." When you add up all of Francis' followers in 9 different languages, he has nearly 20 million followers.
It's all about the message. It's not about what his day-to-day life is. It's not pictures of him. It's primarily text, 140 characters or less.
Father Frank Donio has been studying Catholic engagement on social media for years. He is the director of the Catholic Apostolate Center in Hyattsville, Maryland. The center helps church organizations and parishes to spread the faith. He says part of the mission of the church is to engage people through all avenues, online and in person. Father Frank says the Holy Father is leading by example.
What we're trying to do is also model charity, that there is a need for us to be charitable, that's part of our witness to the world. And on social media, that's part of our witness.
Pope Francis was not the first pontiff to use Twitter. Pope Benedict first tweeted back in 2012. Now, both Benedict and his predecessor, John Paul II, preached often about spreading the gospel through new technology. Brian?
It's effective. Thank you, Wyatt. Pope Francis greets members of the Swiss Guard and their families today. New guards are sworn in on May 6th each year. The Holy Father recalled the history of the Swiss Guard defending the Pope during the sack of Rome, May 6th, 1527. He encouraged members to live their vocation, frequenting Mass and confession. He also said Swiss Guards are a billboard for the Holy See. Well, Britain's newborn princess now has a name. Charlotte Elizabeth Diana is the second child of Prince William and Duchess Kate. She'll be known as Her Royal Highness Princess Charlotte of Cambridge. Charlotte is the 5th great-grandchild of Queen Elizabeth II, 4th in line to the throne. The baby, weighing 8 pounds, 3 ounces, was introduced Saturday evening outside London's St. Mary's Hospital. Gun salutes echoed across London today for the newest member of the royal family. Troops fired a 41-volley salute in Hyde Park. There was another salute at the Tower of London, and a parade of royal horses was staged in honor of the birth of Princess Charlotte. Until tomorrow, for the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick, as we leave you tonight with some moments from this weekend's papal visit to the NAC. That's Rome's North American College. Good night and God bless you.